Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me closely. Change your brain. You are not stuck. You are not broken. You are running a program, and that program lives in your brain. If you learn how to change that, you can change your entire life. You are not stuck. That feeling you have, that your habits define you, that your emotions are who you are, that your mind is something you're trapped in, is not the truth. It's a story written by old patterns, and your brain is constantly updating those patterns whether you realize it or not. The most powerful truth you can understand today is this: your brain is capable of change at any age, at any stage, in any condition. This ability is called Rewires neuroplasticity, and it means you are not the same person you were yesterday, not biologically, not mentally, not emotionally. Right now, as you listen to this, your brain is rewiring. As you focus, neurons are firing, and when those neurons fire together repeatedly, they begin to wire together. That's how habits form. That's how beliefs form. That's how identity is shaped, not just by what happens to you, but by how often you repeat certain thoughts, emotions, and actions in response to what happens. And here's where it gets even more powerful. Neuroplasticity is neutral. It works whether you're building yourself up or breaking yourself down. If you spend every day thinking self, defeating thoughts, avoiding discomfort, and reinforcing fear, your brain will become wired for that. But if you start to direct your attention with intention, choosing better actions, shifting your self-talk, facing the hard things, you begin to sculpt a different brain. Science shows us that even simple changes, like learning a new skill, taking a new route to work, practicing gratitude, light up new neural pathways. At first, they're weak, like walking through fresh snow. But the more you use them, the stronger they become. Eventually, those paths become highways in your brain. That's how people go from anxious to calm, from lazy to disciplined, from reactive to deliberate. They aren't born that way. They just rewired their minds through repetition and effort. The best part, this isn't limited by your past. You don't need to have grown up in a certain environment or had perfect parents or gone to the best school. You only need one thing, as the willingness to start practicing something new again and again until your brain adapts. Because it will. Every time you choose to act in alignment with the person you want to become, you are literally building the wiring to support that version of yourself. Think about this. If you spent 5 years avoiding challenges and now want to become someone who welcomes discomfort, the first few steps will feel foreign, uncomfortable, even fake. That's not because you're a fraud. It's because the neural circuit hasn't been strengthened yet. But keep going. Every time you make that choice, the neurons fire. And when they fire together enough times, they wire together. That's how you break a habit. That's how you overcome fear. That's how you recondition your entire life. Changing your brain doesn't always require massive, overwhelming effort. What it requires is consistency, micro-actions, daily decisions, noticing your automatic reactions and choosing something different. Each moment like that, each interruption of an old pattern is a spark. Enough sparks become a fire, and that fire becomes the energy to fuel transformation. So no, you're not broken. You're not doomed to repeat your mistakes. You're just running old circuits that can be rewired. The brain is not a hard drive that fills up and locks in. It's more like clay, soft when you work with it, firm when you neglect it. And every thought, every breath, every action is shaping that clay right now, this minute. The question is, who do you want to sculpt yourself into? Because you are not your past. You are the pattern you're practicing today, and that is fully within your control. Your brain is not separate from your environment. In fact, much of who you are, how you think, how you feel, and how you behave is shaped by what surrounds you. Your brain is always listening, always watching, always absorbing signals from the outside world and using them to rewire itself. This process doesn't stop when you reach adulthood. It continues every moment you're alive, and most people have no idea how much power their environment holds over their thoughts and actions. But once you see it, you can begin to change everything. Look around. What's on your phone screen the moment you wake up? What sounds do you hear in the first hour of your day? What kind of people are speaking into your life? Are they lifting you up or draining your energy? All of this matters. Your brain is designed to adapt, and it adapts to what it's exposed to the most. If you wake up and the first thing you see is chaos, notifications, noise, comparison, fear, your nervous system will go into a reactive state before you even leave your bed. And when that happens every day, you begin to build a brain that is wired for survival, not for growth. People often ask, why can't I stay focused? Or why do I always feel anxious? Without realizing that their environment is training their brain to be that way. If you're constantly switching between apps, scrolling endlessly, multitasking, your brain learns to operate in short bursts. It forgets how to stay with one thing. If you're around people who constantly complain, gossip, or play the victim, you're mirror neurons. Special cells in your brain that help you imitate others start to adopt those patterns. That's not weakness. That's biology, but the opposite is also true. When you start to take control of your surroundings, you begin to take control of your brain. Spend time in calm, quiet spaces, and your nervous system learns to settle. Put yourself around driven, disciplined, and focused people, and your brain starts to elevate. Feed your mind with purposeful content, books, podcasts, stories of people overcoming adversity, and your thoughts begin to shift. It's not magic, it's exposure. The more you expose your brain to something, the more it becomes part of your internal program. One of the most powerful things you can do is create a space that aligns with the person you want to become. That means being intentional. Organize your room or your desk in a way that signals clarity, not clutter. Set your phone up so the thing you see in the morning is a reminder of your goals, not a flood of distractions. Build rituals into your environment. Morning light, daily movement, even the smell of something calming. That sends signals to your brain. This is who we are now. This doesn't mean you have to live in silence or cut yourself off from the world. It means you need to recognize the influence that light, sound, language, and behavior have on your brain and start to make small changes that add up. You don't change your life in a single leap. You change it by controlling the little things that your brain absorbs daily. If you want to rewire your brain, start with your space. Set up your environment like it belongs to the future version of you, the one who is calm, clear, focused, and strong. Ask yourself, what would their desk look like? What would they listen to in the morning? Who would they talk to? What would they let into their mind? Because you become what you're around. Every sound, every image, every word you hear is either building the life you want or keeping you stuck in the one you're trying to escape. Your brain is adapting to all of it. Choose wisely. What you focus on becomes your reality. That's not just a motivational quote. It's a neurological truth. Your brain is not built to take in all the information around you. There's too much. So it filters, and the way it filters is based on what you repeatedly give your attention to. The more you focus on something, the more your brain sees it as important, and the more it starts to prioritize it. This process happens through a system in your brain called the reticular activating system, or RAS. It's like the gatekeeper of your awareness. Whatever you tell it to look for, consciously or unconsciously, it will find. Think of it like this. If you buy a new red car, suddenly you start seeing that same car everywhere. Did the number of red cars on the road increase overnight? No. But your brain is now paying attention to something it used to ignore. That same mechanism is happening with your beliefs, your fears, your goals, and your insecurities. If you constantly focus on what's going wrong, your brain will start scanning the world for more things that support that belief. If you constantly say to yourself, I'm not good enough, your brain will highlight every moment, every failure, every comparison that proves that thought. Not because it's true, but because you've trained your mind to look for it. The good news is this works in the opposite direction too. You can train your focus to start filtering for growth, possibility, and opportunity. But it doesn't happen by accident. It happens by practice. You have to start directing your attention deliberately. That means noticing what you're giving your focus to and asking yourself if it's helping you become who you want to be. Most people let their focus drift. They wake up and their attention is hijacked by social media, by notifications, by the demands of the world. But attention is not passive. It's not something you should hand over to everyone and everything. It's your most valuable resource. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. And where your energy goes, your life follows. You can start shifting this in small ways. Begin your day by focusing on what you're grateful for, not just as a vague idea, but by sitting for 2 minutes and really feeling it. That single practice can shift your brain's filter to start noticing what's working instead of what's missing. Throughout the day, catch yourself when your attention gets pulled into negativity, distraction, or self-doubt. Don't judge it. Just bring it back. Like training a muscle, every time you refocus, you're building strength. Visualization is another powerful tool. When you vividly imagine your goals, not just thinking about them, but seeing them, feeling them, hearing the sounds of success, you activate the same areas in your brain that light up when the goal is actually happening. This is how elite performers train their minds. They focus so deeply and consistently on their target that their brain starts to believe it's possible. And that belief changes everything from motivation to decision making to resilience. The truth is, your external world often mirrors your internal focus. If your mind is filled with chaos, you'll see chaos. If your mind is filled with purpose, you'll start finding the steps you need to take. It's not that life becomes easier. It's that your brain stops working against you and starts working with you. So ask yourself, what am I training my mind to look for every day? Fear or growth, problems or solutions, who I've been or who I'm becoming, because the direction of your life is not just shaped by your actions. It's shaped by what you repeatedly give your attention to. Focus is power, and you are the one holding the steering wheel. Discipline is not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with or without. It's a system in the brain, a set of neural connections that either get strengthened over time or weakened through neglect. When people say, "I'm just not a disciplined person," what they're really saying is, I haven't trained the part of my brain responsible for follow-through. The good news is, this part of your brain, mainly the prefrontal cortex, can be trained like a muscle. But just like a muscle, it only grows when you place it under controlled stress consistently. There's a very specific system in the brain that manages impulse control, long-term thinking, and decision-making. This is primarily governed by the prefrontal cortex, especially the dorsolateral prefrontal region. It's the part of your brain that says, I don't feel like doing this right now, but I'm going to do it anyway because it matters. That's what discipline really is. The ability to take action that aligns with your goals rather than your moods. The problem is, in the modern world, most people never give this part of the brain a workout. We're trained for instant gratification. Scroll, tap, order, swipe. The brain gets comfortable with short-term dopamine spikes and begins to avoid anything that requires effort without an immediate reward. But here's the key insight. Discipline is built by intentionally doing difficult things, especially when you don't feel like it. Every time you override that lazy impulse and follow through on a small commitment, you are literally strengthening the neural pathway responsible for self-control. You're teaching your brain, we act even when it's uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be massive. In fact, the best way to build discipline is through small wins. Wake up when you said you would. Make your bed. Go for a 10-minute walk even when you're tired. Stick to the routine you committed to. These acts may seem trivial, but neurologically, they're critical. Each of these moments sends a signal to your brain, we do what we say, will do. Over time, this creates a feedback loop of confidence and self-respect. And that loop rewires the brain to expect and even crave consistency over chaos. On the flip side, every time you say you'll do something and you don't, your brain records that too. You weaken the trust you have with yourself. Eventually, your default state becomes avoidance, procrastination, and inconsistency, not because you lack willpower, but because your brain has learned that behavior through repetition. Here's something else to understand. The emotional brain and the logical brain are in constant negotiation. The limbic system wants comfort, safety, ease. The prefrontal cortex wants progress, vision, growth. The more you strengthen the logical brain through daily disciplined actions, the more influence it has in those negotiations. You still feel resistance, but it doesn't control you anymore. You become the driver, not the passenger. It's also important to note that discipline isn't about being rigid or punishing yourself. It's about alignment, getting your actions to match your values and long-term vision. That kind of discipline feels like freedom. It creates clarity. It eliminates the noise of endless choices and regret. And it gives you the ability to face challenges not as threats, but as training. So if you want to become more disciplined, don't wait to feel motivated. That feeling might never come. Start with action. Start with one small promise you can keep today, no matter how simple. Because every time you do, you're not just checking a box, you're reshaping your brain. You're building a new identity at the neurological level. And over time, that identity becomes automatic. You become the person who follows through, the person who shows up, the person who does the hard things, not because it's easy, but because it's who you are. Movement changes the brain. That might sound simple, but its impact is massive. When you move your body, whether it's walking, stretching, lifting weights, or doing breath work, you are not just working your muscles. You're activating a cascade of processes in the brain that influence your focus, your mood, your memory, and even your identity. Most people think of exercise as something physical, a way to burn calories or stay in shape. But at the neurological level, it's one of the most powerful tools for mental transformation. Your brain was designed to move. When you stay still for too long, you don't just lose physical strength. You lose clarity, energy, and the ability to adapt. There's a direct link between movement and brain chemistry. When you engage in physical activity, especially in the morning, your brain releases a cocktail of chemicals that put you into a heightened state of awareness. One of those chemicals is dopamine, the molecule of motivation. When dopamine is released, it signals to the brain that something important is happening. It sharpens your attention. It boosts your drive. It makes hard things feel more possible. The more you move, the more you train your brain to operate in a state of readiness. But it doesn't stop there. Movement also triggers the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Think of BDNF as brain fertilizer. It helps grow new neurons, strengthens existing neural pathways, and enhances learning. That means when you move, your brain becomes more flexible, more adaptable, more capable of change. You're literally making it easier for your brain to form new habits, to let go of old patterns, and to stay sharp under pressure. Movement also changes your emotional state. Many people feel stuck, not because they don't know what to do, but because they're trapped in a cycle of mental fatigue and emotional stagnation. They sit too long, scroll too much, and overthink everything. The brain starts looping through the same thoughts, the same worries, the same doubts. Movement breaks that loop. It shifts your nervous system out of paralysis and into action. Just a few minutes of physical activity, especially something rhythmic like walking, running, or cycling, can calm the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and activate the prefrontal cortex, the center of decision making and planning. Even the act of changing your posture affects your psychology. Stand tall, and your brain receives signals of strength and confidence. Slouch, and the brain interprets those signals as weakness or fatigue. That's how deeply interconnected your body and brain are. You can't think your way into a new mindset. You have to move your way into it. And here's something profound: movement gives you feedback. When you complete a workout, go for a walk, or simply stretch, you're giving your brain a signal that says, I'm capable. I can follow through. I'm not stuck. That physical proof rewires your identity. The more you prove to yourself that you can take action, the more your brain starts to believe it. It starts to see you as someone who changes things, not just thinks about them. You don't need to be an athlete. You don't need to train for hours. You just need to move. You just need to move consistently and intentionally. Start with 10 minutes a day. It's not about perfection. It's about momentum. Motion creates emotion. It wakes you up. It clears mental fog. It opens the door to better decisions and stronger focus. So if you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or unmotivated, don't wait for the perfect plan. Start with movement. Let your body lead and your brain will follow. Over time, that habit will reshape your chemistry, your confidence, and your capacity to grow. The brain doesn't just think, it responds to what you do. And movement is one of the most powerful messages you can send. Your identity is not fixed. You are not trapped by the labels you've carried, the mistakes you've made, or the roles others have assigned to you. What you believe about yourself, what you call your identity, is actually a reflection of repeated thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. It's not who you are, it's who your brain thinks you are based on patterns you've reinforced over time. And here's the most empowering truth: identity can be changed, not by wishing or pretending, but by building new evidence through action. The brain is constantly updating its internal model of you. Every time you make a choice, speak a word, or take a step, your brain logs that behavior and adds it to the story of who you are. When you skip your commitments, when you procrastinate, when you give up early, your brain takes note. It says, this is what we do. This must be who we are. But when you push through, when you stay consistent, when you face resistance and move forward anyway, your brain rewrites that story. It begins to believe, this is a person who finishes things. This is a person who can change. Most people try to change their lives by focusing only on the outcomes. More money, better health, greater focus. But sustainable transformation starts with identity. If deep down you believe, I'm not the kind of person who stays focused, or I've always been lazy, or I never finish what I start, then your brain will continue to seek behaviors that match that story. Not because you're weak, but because your brain values consistency. It wants your actions to align with your self-image, even if that self-image is hurting you. But identity isn't just something you think, it's something you practice. You build a new identity by doing things the future version of you would do. If you want to become disciplined, start doing small things that a disciplined person would do. If you want to be confident, speak and carry yourself the way confident people do, even when it feels uncomfortable. At first, it will feel unnatural. That's normal. Your brain is stepping outside its comfort zone. But every time you take action aligned with your desired identity, you create proof. And the brain rewires based on proof. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. A single, massive effort can be inspiring, but it's the daily actions, the repeated steps, the small wins that truly transform your identity. Because those moments create momentum. They send a clear signal to the brain, we're becoming someone new. Over time, those signals add up, new neural pathways form, habits shift, beliefs evolve. And eventually, what once felt like effort becomes who you are. It's also important to recognize that identity is not about perfection. It's about direction. You will slip. You will have days where you fall back into old patterns. That doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're human. What matters is what you do next. Do you get back on track? Do you choose to realign with who you're becoming? Every time you do, you strengthen that new identity even more. Another key point, don't wait for the world to validate your change. Often when you start showing up differently, people around you will resist it. Not because they want you to fail, but because your change challenges their assumptions. That's okay. Your identity doesn't need their permission. It needs your commitment. You are not obligated to remain the version of yourself that others are comfortable with. You are allowed to grow, to evolve, to redefine yourself again and again. Your brain is listening. Every action you take is casting a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. So speak to yourself like the person you want to be. Act like them, think like them, move like them, because eventually, with enough repetition, your brain won't just believe it, it will become it. That is how identity is changed, not in a moment, but in a series of decisions that add up to a new you.